Tennessee basketball. The Vols have landed another commitment, a vintage Rick Barnes development player, Clarence Massamba, a French shooting guard who last year averaged 9.8 points, 2.8 rebounds, 1.2 assists, and 1.3 steals per game during the 2024-25 international season, playing mostly for SVS Monaco, the under-21 team. He was 44.6% from the field, 34.1% from the free throw from the three-point line, excuse me. Stands at 6'5", roughly 190 to 195 pounds. As Rick Barnes noted, long, athletic, can attack the open court, good with the ball in his hands. This is a big deal to a certain degree for Tennessee. Now, let's be clear on this. So he signs out of AS Monaco Basket. Massamba is another shooting guard. That's where Tennessee had no depth this past year, okay? Then in 2 days, they went and signed Louisiana Tech transfer Amari Abram, who I think will be the starter shooting guard, and now they've signed Clarence Massamba. Massamba is a very, very good pickup for them. He's a vintage Rick Barnes development project. He was a 3-star on ESPN. He's unrated elsewhere. Clarence Massamba is not, I'm just going to make my prediction now. Bank on it, brought to you by Commercial Bank member FDIC, Life Made Better. Clarence Massamba is not going to play for Tennessee next year or log any significant minutes. He will likely develop or likely take a redshirt. However, this signing is not about next year, and this is another sign that Rick Barnes is here for at least a few more years. Clarence Massamba is a guy that you develop over time. We saw what Rick Barnes did with Yves Pons. We saw what he did with Olivier Kamois before Kamois transferred. Kamois made major strides with Barnes. Yves Pons was one of the rawest players. He came from France, by the way. Olivier Kamois came from Eastern Europe. Pons from France was just completely raw his first year, developed into a very solid, reliable wing his last year. Even in his sophomore year, he was having to step in when Lamonte Turner got hurt and played a huge role in helping Tennessee to get number 1 that year. Yves Pons was an incredible development player, and if I'm not mistaken, he was the first actual 4-star Barnes landed, but was totally raw. And then along came Olivier Kamois, who was actually a 3-star, but developed into a reliable post player. These are the type of players that Rick Barnes develops perfectly. He loves those 4-year guys that are raw, that maybe overseas, that are trying to find 2 parts of their game. I will say this. Yves Pons and Uros Plavchik and Olivier Kamois all were a little more awkward as players than Clarence Massamba. Clarence Massamba, if he develops right, has NBA potential. And so this is the best of the foreign guys that Rick Barnes has brought in so far to this point who can really develop. Santiago Vescovi, by the way, mentioned him too, but Vescovi had his own issues into his last year that weren't his fault. There were some personal things that happened that really helped, that really took a step back for him, and the change in the offense wasn't conducive. But with this new offense, with the way Rick Barnes runs things now, Clarence Massamba, I think, can be a great pickup. And bank on it right now. Bank on it. Brought to you by Commercial Bank member FDIC, Life Made Better. Clarence Massamba will hardly play as a freshman at Tennessee. But by his junior year, by his third year, no, I'll say by his junior year. By his junior year at Tennessee, he will be averaging double figures and starting. Bank on it. Well, guys, I'm trying to play bank on it, and I'm having some.
Commercial Bank is your neighborhood bank. What makes us different from other banks? We understand that every customer has unique opportunities, challenges, and financial concerns. We don't expect you to fit into the same box as the next person or business. Whether it's purchasing a home, saving for your child's future, or planning for your next vacation, we're with you every step of the way to navigate life's big decisions. Commercial Bank.
Welcome back. Apologies for that. That was a bit of an issue. Couldn't get bank on it to play, but we are back now. Anyways, yes, Clarence Massamba will not play next year. Now, what overall could he bring? I think the goal for Clarence Massamba is for him to eventually develop into a very, very elite scorer, a taller, longer Chaz Lanier. Look, guys, he has the Scotty Hobson build. And if he has a better mentality than Scotty Hopson, he could be as good as or better than Hopson was. But that's not going to affect Tennessee next year, because Tennessee next year, their starting lineup is going to be Jacoby Gillespie at the point, Amari Abram at the 2, Nate Ament at the wing, Jalen Carey, I believe, at the 4, but you could see JP Estrella there, and Felix Opera at the 5. And then your backups are going to be Cade Phillips, again, Estrella or Carey. Cade Phillips at the 5, Estrella or Carey at the 4. I believe probably now Bishop Boswell at the 3 and the 2, alternating between those two to come in. And then Troy Henderson, I do believe, is going to become a backup point guard. I mean, he's exactly like Zakai Ziegler coming out of Virginia, unrated player, in love with the way Ziegler plays. Ziegler was his mentor. And if you guys remember, Ziegler immediately was the backup point guard. I think that's going to be Rick Barnes' 9-man rotation. And I think he wants to be able to go 90, because the lack of depth the depth could have helped Tennessee, particularly facing Houston in the Elite Eight this past year, as could have the length. Barnes talked about how Clarence plays hard, or how Massamba plays hard, said he has a, quote, excellent basketball IQ. So Massamba will, I think, end up being a very valuable player for Tennessee, but won't be next year. And don't forget, guys, 4-star guard Amari Evans is still there, as is 4-star center Dwayne Brown. And so I think you'll have that 9-man rotation, and then you'll have Evans, Brown, and I do believe Massamba kind of as reserves that'll log sparing minutes, probably will take a red shirt. Tennessee reportedly has one available spot left for its 2025-26 roster in terms of scholarships. They could still go the transfer portal route. We're not sure what they're going to do on that front. They have addressed their needs on the transfer portal route in a big way. So I do think the transfer portal route will help them in a big way. I don't know exactly which route they're going to go with that, but I would try to add another elite player on the wing. I would. And I would think that between Ament, Boswell, and Abram, the 3 guys who actually played last year, who aren't going to be true freshmen, who would be on the wing, I still think you need another one, just for entry and depth purposes. Your front court is set. With Opera, Phillips, Estrella, and Carey. You could add a backup point guard too if you don't think Troy Henderson's ready. But Clarence Massamba is part of the future for Tennessee with Rick Barnes. And look, guys, I've been saying this for a while. Rick Barnes is not going anywhere. He's not going to go anywhere for a while. And so I think that's a big deal. So I think that Tennessee they could end up being in really, really good shape. Now, my biggest question for Tennessee has been what they do with a one-and-done 5-star Nate Ament. As I told you guys, and I've said for a while, Rick Barnes has had 9 one-and-done 5-stars in his career. And he's failed to make the second weekend 8 times with him. The only one he did was with Julian Phillips 3 years ago. And nobody who covered Tennessee that year, 2 years ago, and nobody who covered Tennessee that year thought Julian Phillips had anything to do with them making the second weekend of the NCAA tournament. I don't even think he averaged double figures. So while Nate Ament is the best recruit in Tennessee basketball history, you don't really know exactly what he's going to bring to the table, because Rick Barnes has just not had that level of success with one-and-done 5-stars. Now, he has changed his style to a certain degree, to his credit, starting with 2 years ago when he landed Dalton Connect. So he should be in a situation where his style of play may be a little more conducive to one-and-done 5-stars, but there's the style of play he does and the style of coaching, and I think sometimes he just coaches one-and-done 5-stars a bit too hard for their liking when they're not there to be developed. They're there to find a pit stop to go to the NBA, even though they might embrace Rick Barnes fine-tuning a part of their game. That's the difference between them and one-and-done 5th-year transfer seniors like Chaz Lanier and Dalton Connect, who are truly trying to embrace a part of their game and reach another level of popularity to try to get to the NBA draft. That's why they go to Tennessee, and that's why they work out so well. I think that the other part of Rick Barnes' game is developing guys like Clarence Massamba, which is why he committed to Tennessee. But again, committing to Tennessee requires a level of patience, because he's not going to start immediately, and he's going to have to take some time to kind of learn not just what Rick Barnes coaches, but develop his game to a certain degree to be able to play at the American level. So I think there's going to be a bit of time, bit of a learning curve for Clarence Massamba, but this is a vintage Rick Barnes commitment. And again, the biggest deal of Rick Barnes landing Clarence Massamba is it should end all questions about how long he's staying at Tennessee, at least for now, because he's not just going after all these one and done 5-stars or all these one and done transfers. He's going after specific 4-year guys that he can coach, that he can develop. And unless he's trying to leave the program for somebody else long term, that's a big deal. Obviously, with Rick Barnes landing Clarence Massamba, he's also got Rod Clark, who is now leaving for Indiana. Rod Clark is going to work on the Hoosiers' first year coaching staff under head coach Darian DeVries. That Rick Barnes said that they've got that position covered.